Hello. Seems that I am live streaming. So there we have it. Let's see if I can. Yep, here it is. So we're just waiting. Seems that that always happens. I guess that's one way to know that I still remember how to use YouTube. Let's close out of this. I'm just waiting for my friend Denby Jane from Australia. At least that's what I call her. I'm not really sure if her last name is Jane, middle name, but I call her that. She's in my head that way. And let's see where she's at. Wish we could pause these. Is that possible? Doesn't look like it. So I guess what I'm going to do is just begin. And she'll come when she can. She said, give me 5, which is great because it gives us a moment to light some incense. That's what we're doing. Some Palo Santo. And I reached out to Denby. I wanted to talk to her because so much has happened since we used to chat online here on YouTube and came together during a time that was so intense for everybody, trying to figure out what was going on. And she had reached out to me to engage around yoga and how yoga was changing and some of the things that were happening in all of the communities that she knew of and the ones that I was in touch with. And I wanted her to come on today and for us just to talk a little bit about the lessons learned, how yoga has continued to play out in all of our interactions and all of the things that we're doing in our relationships. And it's changed so much because people are different now on the other side of this. Feels like we're on the other side, at least of the COVID piece. I mean, it still seems to be lingering. But yeah, business has changed, friendships changed, relationships changed. And I know for me, one of the things that I've really learned, and one of the things that I keep reminding myself every day, is that I always come back to it. Only the love is real. And as I kind of step back into this online portal, I'm different on the other side. I'm different than I was. And it almost feels like we become, like my yoga teacher used to say, new and improved. Every time we would wake up from Shavasana in the class, he would be like, sitting there with a big smile. Welcome back. New and improved. Don't get on your cell phone. The buzz will wear off in 3 minutes. So, yeah. It's been a lot of unplugging from the world, right? Because so much of what was happening in our phones. And I met with a mentor today. We had a great conversation around starting again. And he was really encouraging me to just start again. And I've been thinking about this starting again for a good 9 months at least. And the lessons that are coming through now for me are a lot about happiness being connected to Dharma. And Dharma meaning your mission, your work, your passion, your creativity. Let's see where our friend is. Oh, wow. I'm going to finish this thought if you're still with me. I hear so much, there's no people don't have an attention span. They can't listen. And I get that, but I'm used to teacher training circles. And in the teacher training circles, you learn how to sit up tall and to listen and participate and be engaged. And it's a good practice to be patient. I think she should make it in now. But what I'm saying here is that it really is about the lessons of service and how when we serve, we're ultimately happy. And when we're not serving, when we get kind of caught up in the world, or we get caught up in our lives, or I know for myself, I just put down my creative work, walked away for a minute. And when those, types of things happen in our lives, it really is kind of interesting to look at how we react and who we are and how we behave, and who am I without my creativity, without my production, and spend time in nature, and just so many things. So let's see if she's coming. And she's coming.
Hello, can you hear me?
Did it.
Woo! Did it.
It's a miracle.
I know it's a juggle constantly, and especially with reception between you and me as well.
So many things.
Lovely to see you, darling.
Lovely to see you. Gonna burn us some incense. I found myself live, Denby. I was like, okay, let me see if I can remember how to do this. It's been like so long since I've even thought about doing YouTube live. And it was miraculous how I even figured it out. And we're here. But I was on here for like, I don't know, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, just like
twiddling your thumbs.
Well,
probably
it was
getting censored anyway.
Well, I started talking about, and this is something that you and I can talk about together, and what I wanted to talk to you about, which is why I had initially reached out to you, was just really looking at, I had read something you had posted about kind of setting down certain aspects of your work and certain projects that you were involved in, in this last 3-year chunk. And I really resonated with that because I did the same. There were parts of it that we set down and turned our focus in other directions, and a lot more self-study, a lot more, going inward and trying to sort out like what just happened, because it was so intense. And I mean, it was just so immense. Like it was just this immense experience. And I realized in so much of this time off that, so much of my happiness is connected to my dharma and my service. And even though I kind of set down so much of it, I truly missed certain aspects of it. And I especially this type of interaction, the stuff that was happening, or just around getting together with people and sharing ideas and kind of living in the unknown. And it was intense. And, I think everybody on the planet said something that upset somebody else. Like that's a theme. And so the one huge takeaway, which I'm super grateful for, is that when I stepped out, I could see those reoccurring themes of, oh, this is just separation, or this is just, an absence of harmony or compassion, or this is judgment, or this is just someone toxic, or, whatever it was that we were learning from the people. They all had similar themes, and we were all going through the same thing with different stories. It's like different characters, different interactions. And yeah, I guess the biggest takeaway is not only am I happy serving, and I'm excited to kind of step back into this world. I'm getting my website back together and like putting my membership club together and taking like all my content, trying to put it somewhere and just like be like, look, these types of conversations we're going to have here, we're going to have some over there. And we're going to talk about how we're all recovering and how we can kind of come back to happiness and take the good things and leave everything else, because, as I always, tell everybody, only love is real anyway. So everything else is up for debate.
Yeah, totally, darling. I hear you. And that's you're walking your path. It's especially when you go into, or you find yourself called to go into that more proactive activist type of role, I suppose, because everybody's doing what they can to the degree that they feel that they need to, obviously. And for some people that has been just maybe educating some of their family members about some of the crazy stuff that's been going on. For other people, it's like ourselves, get the swords out. And we've just gone complete, very public with it. Everything is okay. This has been an extremely personal journey for every single human on the planet, but there's a difference between that and taking things personally. And that is, and we're all, guilty, without wanting to use that guilt word, but we've all done that, of course. We've all taken offense to things that people have said or not said or done or not done. And offense is taken, not given. And I think it's a really important thing for each one of us to remember, to allow everybody else to have their opinion and their perspectives, and just to allow that to exist at the same time as all of our stuff and everything else, and not necessarily have to do anything about that. It's not bad, it's not good. We don't take it on. We just allow the space for all of those things to exist simultaneously. And that's been a big journey for me in the last 6 months to a year. Slowly taking slowing down that train of thought for myself and stepping back, looking after my family. I've got health issues with my dad, and prioritizing self-care and taking that time out like you have for yourself as well. And I know lots of other healers are doing it too, is absolutely necessity. It's a part of the rite of passage that we go through as we grow older and we mature, so we can actually hold deeper space for people when they start to go through their stuff too.
Right. And I love being that. I feel like this time of real reflection, taking care of myself better, and really focusing on my family and the things that mattered in my orbit, directly, I feel like I'm more present, and I'm more loving, and I'm more accepting of the people and all of their thoughts, and that's what they are. They're their thoughts. And there's a great feeling of accomplishment to untangle emotionally from a lot of that too. And to just be at peace with it, or at least that's the path, at least that's what we're practicing, it's like, I'm trying to do that in these, sometimes it's easier than others, some days it's easier than others, and so forth. But yeah, to be more loving for all of us. I mean, I guess that was always what all of us ever wanted. I think that everybody just wanted to just be at peace with everybody else, but we just didn't know how to do that. And it was just so intense, Yeah.
But love has many different faces too, and many different expressions. It's not just all, oh, I love you and huggy, lovey-dovey sort of stuff. Love comes in, love is fire, heart energy. It comes in and burns the crap out of stuff and just goes, no, the grandmother finger, that is wrong. That is not correct, or that is going to harm you or others. So that's the sacred rage, the difference between just being reactive and volatile and angry about stuff, even though your intention is to save people, which is what ours certainly is. And anyone who's ever spoken up and out about any of the fuckery that's gone on the last couple of years, it's always come from that space of, we don't want you to get hurt, from love. It gets expressed in different ways depending on, and I can relate to this with myself, and I know you will too, depending on how much of our own trauma we still need to deal with and digest. And once you've done that, you can go, okay, I'm not so attached to that, and now I can speak with a bit more love and compassion, as you say, and that allowance. So it's, there's lots of different faces to love. It's not, and I'll just add in there too, love is not love. There's a lot of different shades to that, and we won't go there at the moment.
Well, that's a whole other
conversation altogether.
We could do that sometime for fun between us. I'm not ready to touch that one, but
well, we're live on YouTube, darling, so we'll probably get censored anyway.
Yeah, I don't know, But it's interesting what you just said, about, love has many faces, and love can be quite fierce and direct, and love says no. And I think that, part of the hard part that I've moved through this piece of time was the loss and the grief of, going into something with so much, the intention was pure. It was good. It came from the right place, and I think all of us, I mean, I speak for myself and maybe you, but we trusted that that was the right direction because there was so much passion. There was just so much energy around it. It was hard not to do it. It felt so like, was there a choice? Like, this is what we're doing, And the intention was loving, and it never meant to hurt anyone's feelings. And and when my feelings got hurt, I tried to alchemize that as fast as I could and look at what my part was and try not to shoot it right back and, play that game. But still, it was sad. There was a lot of sadness in a lot of relationships. And as I continue to move through that, I think one of the things that I'm holding dear is that it helps me to think that maybe their intentions were just as pure.
Well, yeah, everybody's doing the best that they can with what they've got, with the level of consciousness that they're embodying at the time. I remember coming up with that or hearing that phrase a long time ago when I was going through a separation, and I looked at my ex-partner and was like, okay, well, he's just doing the best that he can with what he's got. So I detached myself from reacting and wanting him to change or say something differently or be different. It was just like, that's who he is. And the minute I had that realization, and that sense of acceptance, and I embodied that, it was like all that stress and all that angst and all that like raw aggression, in the separation sort of space, which a lot of people will be able to relate to, I'm sure, it just went. And that was much healthier for me. And of course, my child, or our child that we shared, and no doubt for him as well. So everybody's doing their best and they have the best intentions, but that's what I believe when you say Dharma, that's what we're here for. Even if it's, I was thinking about this the other day, and it'd be interesting to see what you think as well of, there's consequences, obviously, and various experiences that come with every choice that we make. And if you want to talk from the perspective of timelines, and you choose a particular timeline, whether it's the extinction timeline, which is the transhumanist stuff, which is all synthetic, or the natural evolution or ascension timeline, which is organic and life-giving and transformative, there are certain circumstances or repercussions that will come with both, many of them, with both of those choices. So when you're in that sacred space, perhaps it's not even about what's going to happen down the track. It's more in that absolute split second that any soul makes a choice to go towards the light or the dark. Maybe that's the one and only lesson that we were here to come and get. And after that, everything's just going to be divinely unfolding, and nothing, it doesn't matter what happens, What do you reckon?
I think that that's what's happening. I think that that's what's happening, is that we just keep choosing it in every moment. And so it just keeps expanding. And then we're going towards it. And anything that wants to take us back, we're less attracted to that because we've evolved and we've learned about it. And we're like, nah. And, I just got to say this course. And so I'm trying to withdraw from too many of the details. I loved your explanation of the two timelines and the two choices. And it's so consistent with all of the spiritual texts that we've all studied. It's light and dark, it's good and evil, it's love and fear, from A Course in Miracles perspective. And that makes sense to me.
And eventually those two paths, who knows? I mean, really, we're all speculating. None of us know what the heck is going to happen, really. let's be honest. But it's interesting to hypothesize. So if those two timelines are going that way and we're living in a duality realm, then at some point they're going to come to such a high extreme that they unify again, and we go into neutral consciousness, or the unification of light and dark. And that there's, like, I'm writing about this in my book, Marie, that one of the chapters is darkness is not the devil. And it's not, because with all the indigenous practices, of course, as you know, and the shamanic practices, the darkness is the womb, it's the void of creation, it's the birthing space. And yet we've got all these imprints of religion and philosophy of like Satan, devil, darkness, bad, etc. So without the darkness, we don't have the light, and without the light, we don't have the darkness. So yeah, we're balancing our own experiences through duality, but ultimately it's the cohesion of both of those spaces. And then maybe that's what the infinity symbol is on a different level as well, because it's the constant, one needs the other within us.
Yeah, I mean, that's the first time I've kind of heard it like that. I'd like to think of it as, it feels to me when it occurs for me, when I have those moments of integration, it feels very much like an absorption, though. So it doesn't feel like there's any duality of anything. It just is. I don't, and I call it light or love or peace or stillness or whatever, but it's much more than that. And it doesn't have any opposition, because it's all that there is.
Yeah.
And it's like, so we're here in this infinity, or, we're samsara, we're, this thing. And then there's that. And maybe that's what you're talking about, was that it just integrated. It was just together.
Yeah. So many different perspectives for it, isn't there?
Yeah. And you've talked to so many people. I mean, you have talked to so many people. How was all of that? Like, I mean, you must have learned so many things about yourself, about others. I mean, I don't know, any takeaways, any fan favorites or lines? Or
it's been a journey, and I'm certainly not. I mean, I will still be doing my podcast, but I'm going to be focusing, like, as you said yourself too, just consolidating into one platform on Patreon and just sharing them there with people who want to come and listen to what I have to say if they find it interesting, and listen to my teachings and what I have to share and my healing work, and support me in doing that as well, because there needs to be reciprocity there. I've done so much, like yourself as well, for free, and I'm happy to keep doing that, but I do also need to put food on the table, as we all do. And a lot of that and that activism hasn't subsided. It's just been integrated more gently, and the feminine has just come in more for me at this age. I've just turned 54, so it's another sort of cycle of learning within myself and witnessing my own patterns and attachments, and what, does that nurture me, does that not? What am I doing? How are you talking to yourself, Denby? What are you doing? Are you walking your talk? All those next level little lessons. So the people that I've spoken to have been amazing, and yourself included. You were one of my first people that I reached out to, certainly in the yoga world.
I was saying that today. I was thinking about how you were the first person that reached out to me after I kind of like had a big exposure, and I was just like, it was so exciting for me, because I was like, wow, somebody from Australia wants to talk to me about cool things. Let's do that.
Yeah, I'm not alone. Because it feels like you're waving the white flag out there sometimes, doesn't it? Waving a red flag, and then there's a white one as well. I'm like, please don't.
It's like I have all the flags.
Yeah, no, it's been a journey, and as you know, the people I've spoken to, like yourself too, you've spoken to amazing people as well, and doctors and activists and thought leaders and just spiritual teachers, and I've been very blessed with that, and that will continue. But I think for me now, the focus is on solutions and positive things, and what we can do, how we can create community, getting out of the public system with the Crown Law, all those sorts of things, which I think is happening worldwide. And I've been trying to study that for the last couple of years and get my head around it. It's a big process.
Yeah. But I think I've played with it too. It's really fascinating, interesting, and I love the topic. I think it's happening in some ways. I can see it in my own life. There are things that are changing, relates to the system of things, but
it's everybody's balancing work and family and sanity and all those things, whilst trying to set ourselves, set ourselves up for a future, especially if we're aware of what, the future that they want to create for us. Then we need to, this is our work. This is our self-study of, as you mentioned at the beginning of this chat. It's important work to, again, I think whatever decisions you make, and I try and do this for myself as well, make them from love, not fear. So not from that anxiety space of like, oh my God, that latest news story, or somebody through even the freedom grapevine says that this is going to happen. And you feel that, that attachment and that energy rising in you. And it's like, I know enough of the bad stuff. That would make sense if I was a psychopath. So fair enough, that is going to play out however it's going to play out. But I'm now choosing to take my energy over here and focus on what is healthy for me and how I can be in service. And be in a beautiful space as best as I can. So if the world does all go to, hell in a handbasket and blows up, then at least I'm leaving in a beautiful, calm, anchored space. I'm not going to be like, panic. That's probably the end game, really, for all of us.
It's been so funny because I stepped out so big. I was like, I'm an extreme person. So I'm like off the grid in Mexico. Like COVID happens and I'm like, wait, what? Like that, it was like that feeling, and then it was just like, oh my gosh. And then I just jumped in full steam ahead and like went for it. And then everything blew up. That's what it felt like. Everything just like, and then I kind of just went, and it was like a yogi in a cave and I just went in. And so I have not followed, like, it was like I dropped all of it. And I think that that's where we get to do this. We get to have this opportunity of being that involved on the inner experience, that feet on the grounding, really, really just, and you're the yogi and, the shamanic practices of just we're holding this and being this and resonating this. And this is all there is. And, it's not that I don't get shaken or, all of those, wait, what moments and who said what. But I do feel
dog snoring. If you just heard that really loud, that was my dog, not my stomach.
I didn't. Oh, I remember that dog. It's a sweet dog.
I don't know if you can see him on the couch over there.
Oh,
big chook. He just took him for a walk, so he's all relaxed. Yeah, it's oh man, it's just
you guys had a real hard time though in Australia, and
we still got it. It's still going on.
See, that's the thing. Like here, it's like a whole different thing. I mean, my kids walk to school. Like life has really, really, really changed. I mean, it got really intense for a while and really difficult, and a lot of things happened, obviously, for everybody. But again, that's just the dramatic aspects of spiritual curriculum playing out. It's like, am I going to master these lessons? Am I going to do this? Am I going to find the light in this? Am I going to be peaceful? Am I going to be friendly? Am I going to make friends? Am I going to learn how to talk with people that say things that blow my head off? Like when I first got back up to the States, I was just like, I knew I was making faces sometimes. I was like, wait, we're at a soccer game. Like, wait, what? Like, we're going to, like that. Just total crazy town, Yeah. And then, it still goes on. It's just incredible. It's just that the show goes on, and it's just a lot of drawing.
Everybody's going to get what they came here for, my love, including us, and a lot of the time because we are in constant process, maybe we don't even know ourselves what that actually is. We might say in the mind, oh, this is what I came for, or this is my mission, or this is what, I'm going to achieve. But that's still in the mental realm, and we can't possibly anticipate every single opportunity that will cross our path, because and I wouldn't want to. I mean, I don't do psychic readings or anything like that anymore, not just because possibly a lot of them are hijacked and by all sorts of entity energies there, but I don't want to know. And that's interfering with free will, mine and somebody else's as well. It's like, okay, well, this just, as you said before, this is the present moment. This is how I've woken up today. I might feel like crap. I might be hormonal or whatever. The family's just gone to shit. But this is what it is in this moment, and everything is transient. So what's the most loving thing that I can do for myself first, to just feel that, not have to do anything with it, just go, okay, I don't feel great, and just move through that slowly using your practices. And yes, some of us have more practices or have had more time to practice those practices than other people. But every single one of us, regardless of how, I don't like the term asleep anymore, I used to use it. So regardless of how aware or unaware we are, and that, Chinese medicine, stomach meridian, what we're absorbing, and, the earth element, how grounded we are essentially, then that's perfect for everybody as well. It's a lot of people will not become aware, no matter how horrific things get on this planet. It's going to be, a friend was asking me this yesterday, and she's saying, well, how can you, like, what's your explanation of why so many people are just not waking up or may never? And I really, truly believe that it's intimately linked to our personal trauma. So if people are just not willing to look at their personal trauma, or they don't even know that they don't know that they have it as well, then that's their path. And then it doesn't matter what we say. We could literally hit them over the head with a brick and show them the most horrific child trafficking, all sorts of crazy stuff, videos, which you and I have gone through our phases of doing, and it's still just going to be glazed over central because it's not part of their journey.
Yeah. I think that, we also get to remember, at least I remind myself, that everyone's at choice. And so like, that's the choice. And so I just get to withdraw more and more of what I think about that choice, because I mean, what other option do I have? Because I spent so much of my time, I mean, like, seriously, it's like, I spend so much of my time being frustrated and upset and like, and then ashamed and then confused. And it just, all of that, like all of it, like it's a chunk of bad code, just like, I just don't want that code anymore, just whatever. So now, everyone's at choice. And I think, when I look at, I think everybody though, see, I'm in an interesting community, and I feel like there are more people that know more than they want to know, obviously. And, they know things, but they're just still a little bit like, they're wobbling, and I get it. It's intense. And I was so lucky to have my life, my adulthood, all the training I had, all of the mentorship, all of the yoga teachers and coaches and people that nurtured me, and women that took me under their wing and, held me when I was, just so much of life's experiences. I was always so guided and always so loved. And I feel so grateful for that. I'm not sure that that's been everyone's experience. It's not that I don't have my own trauma too, but it's not that hard. It's scary to look at it. And I just like to say to people, like, it's not that bad. I mean, it's bad, it's like a, plant medicine experience or something. There are times it's really bad, but overall it's great. And you get to be in unity, and you get to see and understand yourself and the world and how everything's connected. And you get to have visions, and you get to meet beautiful people and drink awesome juice. And, you get healthier and more vibrant, and you heal.
Yeah, it's a big topic. And you're right. We all do have that. We all have free will. And we all have we're given, as I like to say, the universe is an equal opportunity employer. It gives us all the same opportunities, whether we're aware of them or not. And I put my hand up for this too, because I've been smacking my head against the brick wall many times too. And yes, there are people who have had horrific trauma, suffered absolutely horrendous things. And many of them may struggle with pulling themselves through that and to integrating and getting support with that. And a lot of other ones get the support, or for some whatever reason manage to heal that and move forward. One of the amazing podcasts I did with a lady called Max Lowen, and she's in the States, and she has a podcast called Unbroken. And I stumbled across her on YouTube a couple of years ago doing an interview with somebody else, and she has survived child sex trafficking under the Vatican from the age of 5 up until the age of 17, I think. Her story is one that you would read about and, in the Cabal movies and things, and just go, oh my God, that's just, I can't even comprehend that could actually happen. No, it surely couldn't have happened. She's lived it. And we've done a couple of interviews together and listening. And she's a psychologist now. So somebody like that who's gone through, if you just imagine, I won't go into detail, but for you and also anyone listening and watching this, just imagine the absolute most horrific stuff that anybody could ever suffer. She's suffered that, and she's pulled herself out of that. And she's now, a sane, grounded, beautiful person using her experience to educate and support others, has a family, and talks about it openly with that desire in service to help others who may have been in that extreme, but also in between, domestic violence and drug abuse and all sorts, the whole, kaleidoscope of trauma that humans unfortunately suffer with. So we all do have choice. It's easy for you and I to say that we've had our own trauma. I mean, my trauma pales in comparison to the majority of people on the planet, I'm sure, but it's relative to me, and it's been challenging for me. And I know I've had lifetimes of really serious trauma as well, as many of us have. So it's not like, we don't want to sort of have that
we're all in this thing together.
My trauma is worse than yours sort of thing, though. Yeah, but we do all have and you mentioned the really important word there too, support. So if people are not feeling supported, then they're not going to they're least likely to go anywhere near trying to open the door to their trauma and resolving it. It comes down to that, the space of compassion and willingness to be there for one another.
Do you think it's also like, I don't want to look at my trauma, but it's also just like, and not to get too much into this, but I genuinely think that a lot of people are happy as it is. I'm starting to, think that, that this is just life, this is just, this
is your lot. This is my lot, or this is your lot. I mean, we have all those phrases. Yeah.
And, you just do the best you can. You work hard, you raise a good family, you take care of your kids, you be a good person, keep it simple, have fun, eat, drink, be merry as much as you can, which is, not my religion so much anymore, but like maybe that's just where I'm at here also, back up in this kind of environment. It's just, there's a lot of, it's in there because I can feel it and I can see it because I'm in touch with that stuff. But for them, it's like, it's really in there, they hide it well, or they've got things that I don't know how everyone is coping so well. I mean, or not coping. I mean, I know there's people not coping well at all. I'm not saying that, but from a day to day, it seems like people, at least around here, are kind of, I like it this way. I don't want to talk about child trafficking, Marie, especially from you. Like, we just want to be light and talk about this and that. And, you can't talk about that. That's not your brand or whatever,
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, even talking about politics, or like for here in the moment, we've got, I don't know whether you guys are aware of it overseas, but they're proposing, the government, or the grubberment, as I call them, are proposing that we change the constitution. We have a referendum in September around something called the voice here. And essentially, in a nutshell, if anybody's been watching this or paying attention to it, or any expats of Australians overseas, what this essentially will do is trick the Indigenous Native First Nations people here in this country to ceding their sovereignty. That's what it's about, removing private property rights for both black and white. And for there's just so many different layers that in this storyline, this narrative that's being pushed at the moment. And again, a lot of people, and it's all around the racist card, and making the ancestors of in every country have been horrendous to Indigenous. Let's just be clear about that. Not just in Australia, every country, invaders have come in and done horrendous things to the natives. Okay. But at what point do we find a sense of healing and compassion and forgiveness and reciprocity and move beyond that trauma, rather than now trying to make what I think is happening here in Australia with this proposed referendum, is to make every white Australian pay for what our ancestors way back when did. And it was only a small group of our ancestors too, remember. It was like a bunch of, so history says, that a bunch of convicts, which is probably just a bunch of activists who didn't agree with the, the status quo in England, got shipped on a boat. There would have been a few thieves and murderers, I'm sure, but a handful of people that found themselves in a different situation that, again, were controlled by a very small handful of elitists. And those are the people that we should be angry at, not the other people who, yes, did bad things, but didn't know any better or were conditioned under those circumstances to act a certain way. And it's going to create more divide and more racism and more political angst and a massive suffering. But essentially, the Indigenous here have always said this is our country, always was, always will be, and we have never ceded sovereignty, which they haven't. And if this voice referendum goes through, a lot of Australians don't realise that, and Indigenous as well, that will mean that they would have ceded their sovereignty. And if that happens, Australia is gone. Things are happening like that in Canada. I don't know about the States either. So, yeah, people don't want to know about that because it makes them look like they're being racist or they're being judgmental or whatever.
Which is the card these days. So it's kind of like a trick. It's like, we're going to make everyone pay you. And so people think, oh, we're doing a good thing. So we've not, we're taking care of them. But really what's happening is that they're going to not have sovereignty anymore. Like they're not. Okay, that's what's happening.
Yep. And this, as always, there's a small group of, unfortunately, in every country as well, First Nations people who are corrupted, have work with the government, they get funding, etc. So we have a handful of those now that are pushing it upon their own people. and private property laws, and also something was proposed. This bill has actually just passed Parliament. So the Australian government has just passed the legislation for the new wording for the Constitution to be proposed to the Australian people in September. So that just shows you how corrupt our government is. 52 to 19, I think it was, excuse me, in the vote. So, since when have we trusted the government for a start? I mean, even before the whole COVID. That train of thought for myself.
Sorry. I just
want
want
to make any sense. That's right. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So we're seeing that that this is what is being pushed, and a lot of people don't understand exactly what the ramifications will be. They're looking at creating a separate sovereign state for the Indigenous. So wherever that would be, it would be carved out of Australia somewhere, out of the already states that exist, and then there'll be policies and powers granted to that that body. It's a really interesting and very sensitive topic at the moment, but and that is one thing that I am still out there talking about and being semi-activist about, because I can tell you if it goes through, I'll be on a canoe somewhere escaping this country very quickly, because it will go downhill rapidly if that happens. So there's a lot of things that, whether we talk about the COVID stuff, or when we're seeing enough death and adverse reactions, sadly, from the jibby jabs, as you know. So that's kind of just rolling on. And more people are becoming aware of that, even if they've been injected themselves. More people have the humility and the maturity to go, oops, I shouldn't have done that. Or, oh yeah, those statistics are a little bit out of control. So there is awareness happening, it's massaging the collective very slowly down under, at least. I don't know what's happening overseas, because I don't stay in touch with the mainstream, and I'm off social media now, so I don't want to be in that vein of the what ifs anymore. But I think in general, even on that higher level of whatever is happening and what may happen down the line, it's all meant to happen, because that's what we're here for. We're here to learn more about ourselves. We're here to go, okay, you believe that, you did that, but actually we need to come together, because the main enemy is that small little group of people, globalists, who are controlling all of us. So let's put our own, sadness, grief and trauma aside, almost, to a degree, or support each other through that and band together. And I think that's the lesson that humanity has not learnt fully over civilizations. And here we are at another chance to do that.
Do you think we're going to do it?
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Let me get my tarot cards.
Well, I can tell you, you said earlier you're interested in solutions, and that's really the direction that a lot of us are going in now, because you know so much of it, and you said it earlier too. You've seen all the things you know, but the solutions are really important, and I think that the despair and the sadness and the fear and all of that is that, like, how do I change that? Is how do I change this? It really is. It really, 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 really is. And if people start to turn on their lights inside, just a little, just like start to, it's starting. I'm seeing it, and I have a lot of faith, and I'm experiencing so many things that are just, like Manduka honey. It's like, so I have a little bit of honey. I have a little something I'm using it for to heal. And I had it by my computer, and I was putting some on, and the kids were watching some kind of show, and the guy's name was Manduka. And at the same time as I picked up the thing, the guy said Manduka, and I went,
he's watching me.
That's interesting. Trippy stuff like that. A lot. That's, I try and just keep it really, really, really simple. And I know that sounds kind of, simple, but it could be that simple, maybe.
Exactly. I know we get stuck in our heads, and we do go round in circles, and then around again, and we make things very complicated for ourselves. And I think, and that's been part of their plan, and they're very patient, and they are evil geniuses, and they have just been layering down the foundations for this, as I call it, fuckery, excuse my French, for generations. But at any point, we have the power to, as you say, turn on our light just trumps all of that. It trumps absolutely anything that they can throw at us individually, as well as certainly collectively when we come together. And if you don't give space and energy to what if, or the possibility of something happening to you or affecting you, then your field instantly is, it remembers that energetic, the alchemist within, as you mentioned before, about it knows you suddenly just your cells remember what they're here for. And the separation from nature and the elements and the earth and all those wisdom teachings and just the intelligence in every single cell of our body as we are a divine, we're a spirit in human suits, not the other way around. And that's the lesson. It's not to, I don't believe anyway, ascend ourselves out to another dimension so we're so woo-woo that we're not even embodied. It's about bringing the spirit into the physical body, and this is, into material. That's the divine process of alchemizing ourselves and integrating ourselves fully. And possibly with more people doing that, as we're both witnessing, obviously, and sensing too, then that is maybe, we're slowly coming back to that sense of telepathy and, more psychic ability and being able to communicate through dreamscape and all those higher vibration frequency skills, I suppose, that we do automatically as spirits. So we're integrating that and we're experiencing some of those things, but in the physical. And that's the ascension process, perhaps, not the stepping out of ourselves, the coming back into ourselves.
Amen.
That's just my perspective anyway.
Beautifully spoken. It's the truth. It's about embodiment now. So many of us are so smart. Good for you. Like you could do but it's really embodying.
It's not head smart though. It's heart smart and intelligence, and
it has to be, in the feeling body. And I think, that's what my life is about. Is like, what does it feel like in the body? Oh, it feels anxious. Okay, well, and then we go in, well, what are you thinking about? And then, but then it's back to feeling, because that sense, that's our sentience, it's not just our thinking, it's our capacity to experience everything. And I feel excited that I think that more and more people are curious about me. Before it was a lot of like, and now they're just like more, interesting. Because, you've got the something, I got the something, we have something. And I think that's part of embodying it, is owning it and reclaiming it and not letting anyone take it away from you by saying you're dumb or you're dude. It's like, okay, I've spent a lot of my time really, when I heal my own trauma, going into those insecurities and that sadness or being misunderstood or, someone not seeing you or whatever it is, like those feelings that they can still occur. But when we see ourselves really getting through them and being compassionate to ourselves, and like, this is probably, I can tell you in all these years, and I'll say it to you, I'm really starting to understand what that means, like to love myself, like that's like, I'm not totally there. I'm starting to see like where I didn't. And I'm also starting to see like a little bit more recovery faster, and more encouragement, self-encouragement and direction. Like this is let's go in this direction.
Yeah.
And that direction has a lot to do with feelings. So what does it feel like in that direction?
Yeah. What's my yes and what's my no? Yeah. And that's called maturing.
Oh, is that what that is? Because I don't know.
Yeah. It's called growing up.
I'm going to be a big kid soon.
Well, you want to maintain the joyfulness and the lightness and the inner child, but then it's that sense of the grandmother energy, really, we're all moving towards, or the grandfather energy for the men. It's in that sacred space of like, I am worthy, I am deserving, I am beautiful, I am intelligent, I am this, whatever. Not from the ego perspective that we've all been conditioned and taught and controlled by, but just that sense of the deep knowing of this is who I am. And you either like that, and this gets better, like once you hit 40, 50, and certainly after 50, you don't care whether people like you anymore. It's like, okay, well, this is who I am. And if that resonates with you, great, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. And I'm not going to step out of my comfort zone to make you like me.
Right. But don't you think that people like you more? And yes, we don't have to step out of our comfort zone, but I'm I'm finding myself like people just yesterday, someone said something to me really, just guess it was that, it was just like, it doesn't matter what it was.
Yeah.
It was one of those moments of like, oh, are we still having that conversation? Like, really?
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. And I didn't say anything. And it didn't make me uncomfortable not to say anything. It actually made me like, it was a deeper experience of myself. I had my own conversation, it was like, it was such an energy spill. I really feel like so much of this was, at least for me, an energy spill. Like I was like bleeding in the battlefield. Like I was just like, it was just suction cups everywhere, man. It was crazy town. I had to pull back all of my energy. It's taken a lot of concentration here and commitment and patience and just letting it be and just being uncomfortable, just.
That goes back to what we were saying before about, just if you're content and you're in your own power or you're in your own sacred space, then you're more capable and able and willing to, I suppose, as well, allow people just to do their thing there. For example, I'm just out at the post office this morning and I'm just posting out some of my tonics, and they've still got the sticky tape on the line and on the floor and the arrows and the spacing and stuff like that.
Really?
And I just ignore all of that. So I just go and stand up as close as I would to anybody else before any of that crazy stuff. Like I'm just doing me and I'm not being normal, but I'm back. I use that word there. I'm just being normal, how we were before. I hate even using the C word. And, if I cough or sneeze and you see people literally just jump out of their skin, and I just smile at them, I don't bother having conversations with them anymore. And you see people driving with masks still on. And it's just like, like I said before, that's the timeline that you've chosen. And your soul needs to experience whatever's going to come along that timeline for your soul's evolution. So off you go, blessings to you, but I'm going over here. This is how I'm going to be living.
Absolutely. And everyone's a choice. And
choice point.
That's the choice that you want to make.
Yep. This might interest you, Marie, because I was writing about this in my book the other day. And I'd watched a couple of videos, not necessarily on YouTube, but just on other links, BitChute and Odyssey and those sorts of things. And it was just a reminder as well. And this resonates for me, so it probably resonate for you and other people listening too, is that when we're infinite consciousness, we don't actually need to ascend. Why would you need to ascend if you're already infinite consciousness? Okay. So if you can picture that, your essence, your true soul conscious essence is immortal, it's eternal, it can't die, it can't be traumatized, abused, wounded, stolen, whatever, all those things. In that sacred space and knowing of yourself as that frequency, then making the choice to come onto this, what I do believe is a prison planet, is a matrix system, which is all organized and structured and controlled. The only way to come into this, to incarnate into this particular grid, was to sacrifice that essence. So to knowingly go, okay, I'm not going to be immortal, eternal, or I'm not going to believe that it's not going to be physically possible, but I'm choosing to do that now. I'm choosing to kill off perhaps a part of myself or pull it out and put it down to go into that planet Earth, into that matrix. So that's huge trauma on a soul level. So we're all feeling that on a psychic collective level. And then that to me explains why so many people are afraid of death, because there's something in the back recesses of your energetic system that remembers that it had to sacrifice itself and lose everything. So I think that's, yes, deal with your trauma, but the minute that you let go of your fear of death, or you integrate your fear of death, whatever word you want to use there, and you realize that it doesn't matter what any of these elitist oligarchs, whatever, have planned for us, they cannot ever take that choice point away from you. You sacrifice that within this grid, again, through choice. You've done it once to get here, but now you need to do the reverse of that in order to get back out into that eternal space again. And I wrote that down. I probably didn't explain that very well, but I've written it in my book. So I'm taking time to read it to make sure that's really crystal clear. That just really landed in me because I have.
It's interesting.
it's the whole death thing. That's what it's about. And I want to do anything I can on this planet to avoid death. I want to look younger. Like I want to, the whole immortal thing with even using children's blood in facial products. I mean, all the crazy stuff that's gone on as far as the elixir of life, etc. And how humans now through transhumanism are obviously trying to cheat death so they don't ever have to die and they just transfer their consciousness. I can't think of anything more horrendous. But for some souls, that's the answer for them in this incarnation, and so they're going to go and do that. But I think, that for me is that explains why I see and why I can have compassion now for a lot of people, because they're just, fear is change, and change is death. And if they haven't resolved that, because they don't have a connection to their spirit, their spiritual, that physical, mental, emotional, spiritual aspect of themselves, then we will repeat. You asked me if we're going to succeed by breaking that cycle. If there's enough of us that are going to hold that space, we can break that. But if there isn't enough and we go back into, I'm still a physical being, then perhaps we will recycle again. And if we do, it doesn't really matter, does it? Because none of this on this plane matters anyway.
No, it only matters when it's happening and we're feeling it. That's when it matters,
But we make it matter, though, through our attachment to, this is who I am and this is how it has to be so I feel safe. It's like, it's just another story.
Right.
It's I'm just not attaching to anything too much at the moment, which probably sounds crazy because I've been so attached to things before.
Well, that's why I reached out. I was excited to see where you were at. I want to have a feel for, like, where is this lady landing, and it sounds like you're just starting to land and you're still a little like, am I good? You're just kind of going. Yeah. And that was really interesting that, I would take it as like that decision to come came with a knowing that we would remember. That's what I said to myself when and if that happened, that I would remember who I was while I was down here or up here, wherever the frick we are.
In there somewhere. There'll be a clue that even I can't ignore. Yeah.
And then that just feels like we're walking now, not to change this world, to walk through it, to part the waters, to keep going forward, to let the chips fall where they're going to fall, and just walk straight home. Just walk home. I'm walking home. That was really interesting. Wow, what a ride.
Exactly.
Please don't make me do that again. That was
exactly. And whoever suggested that before last time when we were up the back of the celestial bus, you're not driving this time.
Bad idea. Not happening. I'm retiring. I'm going to go retire in heaven and, just stare at the mountains. I don't know. Just
I mean, there's so many different stories of humanity's history and where we're going and where we've come from and whatever, and possibly all of those, there's fragments of all of those things that are correct and true. But again, it's this mind thing that just has to have an answer. Why do we need an answer? Again, maybe that's just in that, maybe it's just once, or maybe there's a succession of little tiny spark moments where you make those choice points and they're the really, the crux of the matter. Or in general, you just go, oh, yep, I know who I am. And that's the only lesson that you actually need to learn, then everything just unfolds from that. And we don't know. I mean, laughing with a friend yesterday saying, I'm coming back as a dog, or a whale or a horse or something. And it's like, that sounds, in this reality, that would be lovely if you were wild and free. But don't, be careful what you wish for, because the next circumstance, you may not want to be a dog. It might be even worse than what we anticipate. Who knows?
I always love the teaching that our only problem was our belief in our separation from God. And when we heal that, we heal everything.
Yep.
Because the answers are coming from that higher intelligence. And that's what we're up to anyway, is just trying to tune in to the highest vibration and align and be absorbed, get direction, clarity, guidance, all the things. Wow.
Yep. Totally.
10:30. I'm so proud of us.
Bedtime.
Yeah, I'm proud of myself for like, yeah,
Yeah, well,
it's been a big day. And
thanks, darling, for making the time for me. It's lunch. It's 12:30 here now, so Tuesday lunchtime for me and bedtime for you. It's always
yeah,
lovely to see your beautiful face.
it really is. It's so fun to connect with you. And I'm sending you all the love. I know you've got stuff going on with your family and all that, and that's tricky stuff to maneuver through sometimes. So
Thanks,
I'm
darling.
sure they're happy to have you, even with all of it, just all the love. Intense.
Back at you, darling.
What else can I
Back.
say? We're in touch. We're in touch. There were other things I wanted to talk about that we didn't get to because I'm kind of like dreamy, but
Next time. We'll do it again.
all right. Take care.
Sending so
Bye.
much